Hey everybody, this is the Hey Poopy podcast with
Dave
and Ellen, two curious people who are
removing the stigma from your stinker.
Yes, we are. And on today's episode, we have Chelsea Wald, who was brought to us by our friend Kim from Flush. She wrote this incredible book called Pipe Dream.
Available April 6th everywhere, so check it out.
It's, I guess, available the day before this episode comes out, and we talked to her all about why she wrote this book, how she got into it, how she became somebody who's out of the water closet. Yes, we just coined that term, people.
It's a new one.
And this was actually like a really interesting read. It was the most homework I think Dave and I have ever done for an episode, but I still loved it. Like, I learned so much.
There's like so much stuff that would need to be done as far as our sewer systems are in disarray. I mean, pretty much a worldwide epidemic, I think. And a lot of places don't even have access to like working toilets. So this thing will blow your mind. It starts off like it gets a little, you're kind of like, it's a little depressing, but it's really hopeful, actually. There's a lot of people out there in the world that are doing amazing things to actually like change the way that we use our toilets, how we like view toilets, how we use sewer systems. I mean, it's chock full of information, technology. So it's got a little something for everybody.
It's the past, present, and hopefully the future of where we put our poop.
Yeah.
Read it. And listen to this interview with Chelsea. Also, if you have any questions for Chelsea, some follow-up questions about the book, or if you have any questions for us or questions we should add to our regular questions, please email us at heypoopypodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can leave a voicemail at 203-998-5579. Like we always say, have you rated? Have you reviewed? Have you left a comment? Just subscribe, download to this podcast. Every little bit helps, people.
Follow, tell a friend about us. Even if you hate us, tell your friends how much you hate us, because then one of those friends would like us.
Yeah. You know? One at a time.
Also, just a heads up that these episodes do have swearing in it, and we can't talk about poop and pooping your pants without it. So it's not for the 18 and under crowd. So if you're at work or if you have kids in the room, you might want to put on headphones.
Yeah. Or just don't let them listen to it. You know? But still, download. On to the show. Enjoy the episode, and we'll talk to you next time. If you like playing with poo, now you can finally do it in public with the Poopocalypse card game.
Created by comedians, Poopocalypse is kind of like if Uno and Exploding Kittens had a big poopy baby.
Poopocalypse is surprisingly strategic and full of crappy characters like Abraham Lincoln Log, Cleopatra, and Attila the Runs.
It's fun for immature people of all ages, like me and you, Dave. I played it. I love it. I can't wait for you and me, Dave, to play it together in person post-pandemic.
It's going to be really fun. And the games, I mean, everything about this game is fantastic. The illustrations, and it's loaded with tons of puns. So if you like poo puns, this is the game for you.
Poopocalypse is currently running 10% off discounts on Amazon right now.
So if this game sounds like your kind of crap, search Poopocalypse on Amazon today.
We all want to feel fresh and clean after going number 2, but using wipes, even so-called flushable ones, can cause major clogging issues. Introducing Cleanse. That's Cleanse with a Q.
Which transforms your ordinary toilet paper into a truly flushable and eco-friendly wipe.
This cleansing foam is the perfect partner for your toilet paper at home or out on the go.
Visit cleanse.com. That's QLEANSE.com to get yours today.
Listeners can use the code HeyPoopy for 15% off your first order. Try Cleanse for yourself and discover a better way to wipe clean.
Hey Poopy, how you doing? Hey Poopy, how you doing?
I'm just, trying to find a place with like-minded people to talk about like-minded things about me, about poop and stuff.
Hey Poopy, how you doing? Hey Poopy, how you doing?
Oh man, what's this right here? Is this a podcast about poop?
And now, the Hey Poopy podcast with Dave and Ellen.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show on this dump day, and we are very excited about what is about to go down.
Yes, we are. This is the first show that we did a lot of homework for.
Yeah, we did a lot of reading.
This is the Hey Poopy podcast with
Dave
and Ellen, and this is episode 114, but it'll always be number 2 to us. Our favorite number. And we have an amazing guest today, Chelsea Wald, who wrote this incredible book, Pipe Dreams, that is scary and hopeful.
Yeah. The urgent global quest to transform the toilets. It's exciting. But thanks for being on the show, Chelsea.
Really, even though the listeners will be listening in April, we're still in February. I don't know if you tell the listeners that.
Yes, we do.
This is actually like my first real interview for this.
Oh.
Really?
So
Oh, wow.
I'm really excited about it. A little nervous.
You're going to do great. But thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.
So honored to be invited.
Yeah.
This episode, I think, comes out April 14th, so just a week after the book comes out. So people, go buy the book.
It's a great book. It's a great read.
But before we go into the book and you, Chelsea, we like to go into how have you been pooping recently?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, I'm a pretty good pooper in general. It's not a struggle I've had in my life, but I do have a little bit of stress going on at the moment, some anxiety, and I do feel that in my bowels, and I get some nausea sometimes. And then I, as you've discussed on this show before, when like around the time that the woman gets her period, there can be some extra action.
Yeah,
I've heard you explain that really well before, Ellen.
The
so
prostaglandin.
Yeah, so the same hormone sort of stimulates both the menstruation and the pooping. So I have that going on right now too. So I had, I think, 3 or 4 shits before this morning.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
I'm jealous.
And yeah, and so I feel pretty good. They were a range somewhere in the, depending on which one, 2 to 5 on the Bristol chart. So
Okay.
some healthier than others.
Oh, that's good.
Overall,
Nice. Okay.
no complaints. How about you?
So what about you, Dave? How have you been pooping?
I was going to ask you first, but yeah, I'll go. I've been fine. I just had a nice one before the show started, like a 4.5-ish.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's been good. There's nothing really exciting to write home about, But yeah, I just right before the show, I would say 15 minutes before the show started.
Yes. Since I'm drinking my coffee right now, it might happen during the show. So we'll see for me.
There'll be a pause, I'm sure. There'll be some.
But yeah, I have not gone yet this morning. But yesterday I almost took a picture, Dave. I had the perfect 4.
Wow.
I swear to God, it was 10 inches long. It was this wide. What's that? 2 inches in diameter. It was poking out of the toilet. It was perfection.
Wow.
Perfect.
Oh, well, maybe
believe it.
Maybe there'll be another one today.
Yeah, I mean, let's only hope.
2 for 2.
The only thing, and I think I said this on the last episode, the only thing I've changed with my diet recently, besides counting calories and eating a little bit less, is I removed gluten-free bread from my diet, and I'm making avocado toast on sweet potatoes, and I swear to God, I have been pooping like a champ, like the cereal. These are textbook beautiful. Our doctors would be proud of me.
Wow. I mean, see, I think what's going to happen is, though, you're going to start doing this program, or whatever, your meal thing, and then it's going to turn into something else.
Oh, yeah.
It always starts off I'm having these perfect shits, and then it turns into I don't know what I did. I don't know what happened, but that's great. If it's as long as it's working now, that's awesome.
No, you've known me very well over 2 years of doing this podcast. It will go sour at one. Right now, I am pretty.
That's great.
stoked on it. Yeah.
Well, we'll count the days down when those sweet potatoes betray you, stab you in the back.
Next episode, how much I'm
Yeah.
I lied. I'm terrible.
But that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty good.
FartVac is the world's first fart vacuum and filtering system for your farts.
Using a hand air pump with activated carbon filter, FartVac reduces the stench of your flatulence.
Take responsibility and reduce your fart smells. You can now fart without shame.
FartVac also makes a great gag gift for those gassy people in your life.
No more pain while fighting nature and holding in gas.
Join the proud movement to embrace your body's natural functions with FartVac.
Use discount code HeyPoopy for $2 off at fartvac.com or search FartVac, FartVac, on Amazon for purchase.
So, Chelsea, tell us a little bit about yourself besides just this incredible book.
Oh, well, how did I get to this place where I wrote a book all about toilets? I mean, I grew up I live in the Netherlands, but I'm not Dutch. I'm American. I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. in Virginia. And I went to New York to go to college. I studied astronomy.
Oh.
Then decided I wanted to be a science writer. And so I went and got a master's in journalism. And so I've been writing about science and the environment ever since then. And I'm a freelancer, and, I've always been kind of looking for my own lane. I'm not the kind of, it's hard when you're freelance, but I'm also not the kind of reporter who sort of chases the really big story. I always look for something that other people are not doing.
Yeah.
And in 2013, so it's now a while ago, so it feels like yesterday to me, I had two stories that came my way that both touched on toilets and sewers. One was about kind of innovations in toilet technologies for developing contexts where there's often bad toilets or sometimes no toilets at all. And then the other story was about heat in our cities and about all the heat we throw down the toilet and into our sewers, and not actually down the toilet so much as through the drains into the sewers, like through your shower. There's a ton of heat in that water and it goes into the sewer, and how we could reclaim it. So that was part of that story. And I just thought, there's really a lot here around this topic of our toilet.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I did more. I just kind of followed my nose, and I went with some archaeologists to Rome to go look at some toilets, some ancient toilets there. And I just did a bunch of stuff. And eventually I just realized that I gathered so much material that there was a book. And I really thought nobody had any idea that there was so much there. Like, nobody I talked to had any idea how much there was that you could write or, think about around this topic. And I thought, well, here's definitely something. This is my lane.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing.
And so I just put it all together in one book. So I hope that, like, when you're, like, the reader experience is kind of like that. Just like, I cannot believe how much material is here.
Yes.
Well,
that's why when you were just saying you don't go for the hard-hitting stories, a toilet doesn't sound like a hard-hitting story, but it actually might be one of the most important stories of our lifetime. I think the invention of sewer systems and vaccines are the reason why we can live into our 90s these days, So... Yeah. I think so. I think we just take it for granted,
Oh, completely.
And we also take for granted that our toilets are working well and that our sewers are working well. And I hope that, when people read this book, they'll realize that there's really a lot of work we need to do, that our sewers and our toilets are not serving us well. And there's so much we could do to make, we can ask so much more of them if only we just put our attention to it.
Completely.
Well, I think a lot of people
scientists working on it.
Yeah.
It's just that people don't want to change. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people, like, they, once, like, as far as our modern toilets, and, I'll just use America, the U.S. as an example. It's like people are kind of like, yeah, it works. I don't want to think about what goes in there, and we don't want to talk about this. Yeah. But really, from reading from your book, like, also, and just stuff that we've talked about on the show too, it's like there's so much room for improvement. And just, like, in general, I mean, besides, like, the normal, like, this updating the sewer systems around here, but as far as, like, the environment, what you can do to recycle, like, new energy, I mean, it's pretty expansive, and you cover that quite a lot in your book, which I thought was pretty amazing. But
we were saying right before the interview, I said this book starts off kind of like sad and like it's kind of scary, but then very hopeful. And like the one big come away I came with it is like, I was thinking you wrote like that movie Dune was all about water conservation, and I think about Tank Girl and how that was this dystopian movie about like water was the most important commodity, and it sounds like the future is not about like the lack of water, it's about how to recycle everything that we have, and that our homes might be self-sustaining.
Yeah, I mean, as a planet, we need, it's our home. We need to make the whole thing self-sustaining, and that
Completely.
is, we produce this stream of nutrients and, other materials, information, and all of the stuff that we, to a great extent, don't really think about, don't always use, and we could be doing so much more.
Yeah, I mean, I think people just don't look at it as a toilet. I mean, I get it, but people just don't look at it as an actual resource. You can actually, all the stuff you can gain from it is pretty incredible. At least like from some of the people that you worked with and profiled in this book, especially, it's pretty crazy.
But as you were talking even just now about how we could heat our homes with the excess of our wastewater, and how the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver did that. And I was like, I've never even heard that before. Like, and that happened over a decade ago. Like, why aren't we talking about that more? Like,
it is kind of a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Especially when we're still working off of fossil fuels to heat our homes. Like my apartment is heated on gas heat, So yeah, that's amazing. And then you also talked about a place where they turn poop into briquettes to cook their food. And it sounds gross to cook your food over shit, but it sounds like the way that they processed it and turn them into these pieces of coal. It's like, okay, so why are we flushing this? It seems like an important commodity down the toilet.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, you wrote the book on it.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I think too, it's like getting people to stop thinking a certain way, and list lobbyists, at least as far as in this country, especially in the U.S., it's just so hard for anybody to see past like the short term, like money making goals, as opposed to like a sort of like a future where we can actually live off these things and use like different types of resources. I mean, the whole toilet thing to me is like the fact that like you can have it set up in a way where you can recycle your, for lack of a better term, your shit, your piss, and turn it into fertilizer, like you said, like little briquettes, like all these things. I mean, it's to me, that's like incredible. But I think people just don't want to talk about it because it's like, has to do with like, something that's like taboo. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think people might be surprised that in many cities in the U.S., where you live, your shit might be currently turned into energy and a type of fertilizer that is known as biosolids, and that already is happening. I mean, and it has been happening for a few decades, and that kind of even blows people's minds because they don't know what's going on with that.
I live in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, a half a mile from the Newtown Creek sewer system plant, and I don't know if you've been here and seen those eggs and how they're the digester eggs. I'm dying to meet somebody there and getting a proper tour and interviewing them about it, but I know that they do all that right there, and I'm like a half a mile from it. So.
Yeah, I think everybody should know where their shit goes and what happens to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of my crusades, and it's actually not that hard to find out. You can just usually go online and find out where your wastewater treatment plant is. I mean, most people have centralized systems. So like there's a few in New York City, but many cities only have one or two. And you can find out where it goes and what happens. So yeah, probably they're digesting it, right? And they're making some biogas out of it, and they're using it probably to power just their own operations, heat their own buildings. And then the residuals that come out of those big digester eggs, I mean, what's happening in there is a process by which microbes break down the stuff that comes through the sewer after it's been treated. So there's a whole treatment process that happens after the sewage comes through. And then out of that process, then it goes to these digester eggs and gets made into biogas. So microbes, eat it and then like produce this methane and other gases, and then you can turn that into energy. And then the residual solids that come out of that, because it doesn't just like get rid of all the solids.
Yes.
And those solids are actually kind of just, at that point, mostly dead bacteria. It's not poop anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's been bacteria eating the poop all along. And then it comes out, and then that's sort of like a waste product called biosolids. And that's actually, it's kind of just a big problem in a way for these systems. And they have to figure out how to get rid of them somehow. the good thing is it's got nutrients and carbon in it, and it can be used as a fertilizer, or sometimes it gets sent to a landfill, or sometimes it gets incinerated, depending on what's possible locally. Mostly.
There's a book that we came across with another guest like almost a year ago about human manure and how we could turn our own human poop into manure, and of course the process of it. And I'm like, it's funny because we go to Home Depot and buy this fancy dirt that's pretty much probably cow shit and we're paying for it, where we're like literally pooping out and throwing away the stuff that we pay for. So, and then Dave once did an article about how, was it in the Netherlands that they are getting this phosphate?
Yeah, that was like, I was just going to say, there's this place, I think it was in the Netherlands, I forgot exactly where, but they've turned their sort of like digesters and like treatment plants to the point where they're almost like recycling everything, all the waste, where they're taking like the feces part, and it can be either separated into some kind of phosphorus type of fertilizer, and then also the leftover from that can be also used, they're using it like for pavement, like for like asphalt and construction, which I thought was amazing. And like they were saying something in the article that they were only getting up to like, I mean, don't quote me on this, but like somewhere around 70% of like recycled matter from like all the waste, but they're trying to get it to like 100. If they can get to that point, like it's going to be like incredible. So, I mean, and and I would love to see that here.
Yeah, they really are doing a lot of work here on that. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but it does sound right. And the thing about asphalt is really interesting. I mean, I can go into toilet paper if you want recycled toilet paper.
From that article, Dave also said the phosphate is like something we can't get naturally anymore. And
it's getting harder. So and it's something that's obviously like goes to like farming, to like getting us food. So in the future, it's going to be a hot commodity.
Exactly. Phosphorus is really interesting because it's a mined. So it's an essential fertilizer, and it's mined, which means it's a limited resource in the world. And most of the phosphorus used in agriculture is mined. And most of that comes from Morocco. And kind of nobody knows how much is left because they keep it a secret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the articles, it was really like, it was kind of scary actually. Just the fact that like, at some point, like anything else, you're going to run out of it. And what are we going to do? And if we can figure this out, it's actually going to make that like a really big business / just to keep the future of the planet alive,
Yeah. The best way to do it is actually getting it from urine directly. So if you can separate out urine from poo and you can take it from the urine, I think that's the most efficient way to get that phosphorus out. And there's a lot of projects to do that. There are some places like Malawi where it's landlocked and they already have a really hard time getting phosphorus for agriculture. And so there's projects there harvesting urine for that. But this show is about poop.
Yeah.
I know.
I could talk about urine forever.
Yeah, I did write some notes about urine because I was like, I'm usually not even excited about pee, but I'm kind of excited about because you even wrote about you were pregnant in the Netherlands and that they were like having you bottle your pee to help other women. And I was like, why have I never even heard the only time when you get pregnant and you pee is to see, you pee on a stick to see if you're pregnant, And so the fact that they were harvesting your pregnant lady pee to help other women get pregnant, I was like, that's even so insanely interesting that you shouldn't even be flushing your pee down the toilet because that's important.
Yeah, I had no idea that was possible. I was pregnant. Nobody knew. I was 7 weeks pregnant. I was having lunch with friends, a contact really, who works in toilets. And we were just chatting because this is a topic of interest. So we, always like to get together and talk about toilets over coffee. And she just happened to mention, she said, there's even here they collect pee from pregnant women. Did you know that? And I was like, can she tell?
You're like, what are you trying to say?
I ran home and I looked it up and I signed up, and just in time, just under the cutoff, because you have to donate in the first trimester because that's when this hormone peaks.
Interesting.
And
that's so crazy.
So then they came to my house every week, collected the bottles it was like a milk milk delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an
You were
unmarked
saying that
van.
your neighbors were figuring out that you're pregnant because they understood this, and it's like you're helping science, but it's a dead giveaway that you're this trimester.
Here, because so many women do donate to this, because it's been going on for decades, since the 1930s.
That's crazy. I never even heard of that.
My mind.
Yeah.
Like, why we're not doing anything like that maybe we are in the United States, but I've never even heard of it.
Yeah.
I don't know that there was ever any system like this in the U.S. There were quite a few in Europe, and also eventually in more populous countries in India and Brazil. They had it set up for a while, but now they actually have a way to make synthetic versions of this hormone. It's the HCG, which is the same hormone that you're testing when you pee on a stick. You can extract that from the urine, and then you basically put it through a process, and then you inject it into women as part of a fertility treatment to
it's so fascinating.
Ovulation. Yeah. So here they're still doing it because there is still a demand for this non-synthetic, urine derived hormone. And I have some evidence. I've gathered some evidence that they're doing it like in China and some other places, but I really don't know that much about it. So it is something that could happen again. And you could make a lot of things with it. So if we could just kind of change our toilets a bit, and it's not just a little bit, it's actually kind of a lot. It's like a big change, right? It's like you're not going to get everyone to pee into jugs, probably.
Yeah.
You showed a diagram of like the thing you had to put on your toilet, and it looked.
Yeah, I mean, I just
simple.
I had to pee into a pitcher. That was it. And then
okay.
pour into. Oh yeah, that's a different thing. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
And then I had to pour the pitcher into this jug, and it had some preservatives in it. So I had this little smell to it, which was kind of like, for a couple of weeks, it wasn't that bad, even though I was, nauseated because I was pregnant. But it's just not something that people are really going to, do every day, I don't think. Most people. And then,
well, the funny thing is I prefer natural stuff. And you're saying that the hormone can come synthetically or naturally. I would be like, oh, I'd prefer the natural one. But then if they were like, but the natural one comes from another pregnant woman's urine, we're going to inject in you. Yeah. I'd be like, well, you're doing what? Like
fecal transplants a little. Yeah, this is like urine.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a little. We're trying to find somebody who like really is like in it. Fecal transplant. Yeah. So yeah.
But I think too, if someone really wants to get pregnant, they'll just. People do a lot of stuff to get pregnant, so I think like if they're like fuck it.
This is safe. I mean, people have been doing this for a long time, and doctors don't tell. I mean, I actually put a call out on Facebook. Hey, has anyone used this drug in a fertility treatment? A lot of women use fertility drugs, right? Yeah. Could you let me know? And I did identify someone through a friend, and I talked to her, and I told her, I was like, that's pregnant women urine drug.
Was she like, what?
Yeah, she was like, oh my God, she just couldn't believe it. Her first concern was that safe? Should I have done that? And when I said, yeah, I mean, I don't have any reason to think it's not
90
safe.
plus years.
Yeah, I think it's fine at this point.
I have no reason to think it's not safe. I mean, maybe, yeah.
And they're not injecting straight urine. They're like breaking down the hormones.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a whole process. Yeah, it gets extracted in a factory and sterilized for sure, and then turned into a drug.
Yeah, because that was another thing that like I've heard on other radio shows that we haven't really touched on here about people who drink their own urine because they think there's health benefits. And I actually know some people who believe in it, and I'm like, no, that's the body's waste product. You don't put it in your mouth. And you even say strongly in your book, if you keep doing that, you will have kidney failure because your kidneys are trying to get rid of all that waste.
That's what I've read. I mean, I didn't do a deep exploration into the world of people who drink their own urine. That was sort of outside the scope of my book.
Yeah.
But your book is about like reusing and recycling a lot of stuff that comes out of us. That's one thing we should not be doing.
Yeah, you don't want to take it straight from the tap. Jesus, like at least you want to kind of like have it go through a process.
I wouldn't.
No.
But you can clean it, and turn it into water again and then drink that. But that's like a whole process, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's what they do on the like space shuttle things, like, you know, those scrubbers that take, like, they recycle all that stuff out. And even we had a woman named Kim from Flush that was talking about urine. Yeah, that's right. Yes, sorry. Yeah. Yes, yeah, I loved it because she was talking about how, like, even like using your urine for like plants is like just, it's insane. Like how, like, you know, it just helps them. So I mean, like this, it can be used for everything. And if we can get to a point where society can kind of just get on board and like take all these elements, these raw elements, and then actually make them into other things that'll help, I mean, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, and what I found was that we're getting closer, because although I think that most people won't want to pee into jugs like I did for a limited period of time, which actually didn't bother me that much, but it does bother some people.
Yeah.
Is that there are new toilets that make this urine separation very easy. That's awesome. It's just a question of getting into everyone's house, and not just easy, but like basically invisible. So there's a new toilet design out of Austria.
Oh, the EOS? How's it?
Yeah, EOS.
EOS, yeah, there.
EOS.
I could not pronounce. I was like,
yeah, EOS. Where they take advantage of this physical property called the teapot effect, where if you pour water or pour tea out of a teapot and some of it dribbles down the side, well, that is what they're doing in the toilet, so that your pee goes onto the side and then it kind of dribbles down the side into a separate hole, and then the poop just goes straight down.
Yeah, that was a good part in the book. They were like teacup. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And the diagram in there was awesome.
Really normally, but here they're making some good use out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the diagram in the book for that was pretty amazing too. That whole system. I was like, oh my God, this thing is like, it's like pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's so the diagram was the Urinator, which is an open source device.
The Urinator.
I don't know what you need to do to make it. Maybe you need like a 3D printer or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it's a device that simulates urination so that you can design better toilets.
Wow.
I love that it was called the Urinator too. I forgot about that. There's so many like.
What else would it be called?
Yeah. That almost sounds like some kind of weird like pro wrestling villain.
Yeah.
The Urinator.
One thing I want to say about this program here in the Netherlands, where they are harvesting this drug, is that they have this ethos about the program, which is like giving and generosity from woman to woman. And I think that's a kind of message that might work, when it comes to changing our toilets. Like, people are willing to make changes altruistically. And it's just like a sort of nice message that they have. I mean, it is a private pharmaceutical company, so I'm skeptical. They're making money off of this. You're donating for free and they're making money off of it. But they're telling the women, hey, this is a really good thing you're doing. You're doing it to help other women have babies. You know how special that is. And, of course you want to give as well. And maybe there'd be some version of that for also, poop donations and stuff.
That'd be great.
I mean, it sounds like with fecal transplants, we might need to have poop donations. People with healthy guts to give it to people with unhealthy guts. So, yeah. But,
yeah, but how nice to be told that you have a healthy gut. I mean, I think that's so flattering, Like, your poop is so good.
Yes.
You should really be donating.
You get this gold star.
You're the O negative blood of poop.
Yes. You could totally walk around telling people that. Yeah.
I would.
Chelsea, like, even with your urine donating, before you started going down this path of writing this book and learning about sewers, were you more private about pooping and peeing? With like 20 years ago, somebody asked you to donate your urine, would you be like, are you fucking crazy? I think education something like your book, if people are educated, opens their mind, where it's now such a taboo. If we tell people, save your poop for this reason and that reason, they're like, ew, gross, no. But then when they realize, so were you one of those people who were more private?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I was a very sort of reserved and proper child and young adult, and I think I am still kind of reserved and proper. Not a squeamish one, so not like a I never really was that grossed out by poop, but I mean, I remember a time when my friend, I lived in Austria for a while. We've already mentioned Austria, but I lived in Austria for a while, and my friend came and wanted to talk about the toilets, which have these shelves in them. You must have talked about
yeah.
on the show.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
The German poop
She
shelf.
wanted the German poop shelf. Yeah, Austria is very close to Germany. And all throughout Europe, you can find these. And she wanted to talk about it. And I was like, why? Why would we talk about that?
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about anything else. And I think I just gave her a look, you know. And then I think, you know, part of me really remembered that and thought, what was that, you know, about me that I was so reluctant to talk about that? Maybe there is something interesting there. And so over the course of all of this, I think I just got really comfortable talking about it. And now it's not easy to remember what it's like to be more reserved about it. I mean, I still when we were talking about, you know, how we were shitting recently, that's still a little new to me. I don't really talk about my own shit. It's not me, but I think, you know, people are changing. I think people in general are changing, you know. There's been, you know, sort of just this rise in the poo emoji, and there's poo museums now and all this stuff. And I think, you know, you used to not really be able to talk about this topic, you know, over dinner or something. But I really think you can now. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't been to a dinner party in ages.
Well, yeah.
We had a guest
if and when
who's American, but his now wife is Italian, and he said that during dinner she turned and she goes, "I just want to thank my boyfriend Drew for being more comfortable about talking about shit these days." And he was like, "What? Why are you bringing that up at dinner?"
I even have this show. I still like talking about it at dinner sometimes. It depends on depends how detailed you get into it. Like if I'm actually eating, I'm like, hey, can we just table this until after dessert?
Yeah, I can appreciate that, but I don't really feel that way anymore, except if people were talking really about their own.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's a no.
It gets a little personal. Yeah.
Yeah, if it gets personal, but the idea is, you know.
The abstract is fine, but when you start diving into someone's habits, you're like, okay.
It's funny because like when you're a homosexual person and you haven't come out of the closet yet, you're closeted. Where I feel like people who can't talk about poop, should call them they're water closeted. You know, they're stuck in the water closet. And it goes even back to history about like how way back in the day, like in the Romans would all poop together in a row and share a shit stick to wash themselves with, which is like the communal stick is so disgusting to me. Like, I don't think we should go back to that. But then when they started inventing these water closets, where that's when it became more private, like we don't talk about this because it's in a little room to ourselves, you know? So we need to get everybody out of the water closet.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I mean, you guys are really lifting the veil on this, but I mean, it's so interesting how we know so little about what other people are actually doing behind those closed doors.
But a lot of it we've learned also is health. Like if you talk to people about what's going on, you'll realize, oh wait, the blood on my toilet paper is not healthy. I should talk to a doctor. And we had like a guy on the podcast, Matty Glitterati, who had a cyst in his butthole, and he went to the wrong doctor and had a terrible surgery that took months to get over. But then he has been helping other friends who've been having the same problem, because it's supposedly a very common problem in the gay community, but nobody talks about it because they don't, you know, like that's something you shouldn't talk about. And it's like, maybe we should talk about it because it might help people and help their health.
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting episode.
That's a good one.
I'll email you after. But yeah,
it is. I agree. It's something that people should talk about. But I think there has to be a balance too. I think I get it. Some people just don't want to, you know. I think they feel more open and comfortable talking to their doctors about that kind of thing, because obviously blood on the toilet, like, I don't think anybody's like, oh, that's like a normal, that's normal, right? Like, I mean, you know, I think that there should be, I don't know, I think the ability to like talk to like at least a medical care person or your doctor, openly and comfortably about it, not feel shame. That's where, but there's people that just like don't want to talk about their private, especially that kind of stuff. Which
Dave, we've had doctors on the podcast who a lot of the times their patients are insanely shy about this, and that's like the one place you shouldn't be shy.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm agreeing. Yes, I'm totally agreeing with you. What I mean is like, if I saw blood in the toilet paper, I'd be like, this is crazy. I'm not going to tell my best friend about this, but I'm definitely talking to my doctor and like an open book. But I mean, if we can get people
talk to me about it, because then I could be like, hey, I've had blood on my toilet paper.
Sorry. I'm not explaining myself correctly. I don't mean me literally. I mean the person, like, people that are a little more uptight about it. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I mean, I think a lot of people, for them, it's like, it's just hard. But I think if they can get to the point where they can get over that hump as far as like, I need to talk to somebody about this. It doesn't have to be like, again, my best friend, but as long as I can express myself and get it out there and like not, potentially have a health hazard. But,
I talked to some, this entrepreneur, and there's a bunch of scientists working on these medical toilets. When you think about these sort of advanced toilets, you think about ones, like these out of Japan that play music and
amazing
lights and are seat warmers and automatic coming down. But there's this whole new generation of medical toilets or toilet seats that are probably going to come out if they work. I mean, they're still being worked on, but I mean, there's enough groups working on these kind of medical toilet seats. I think there must really be something there. And at least this one entrepreneur I talked to, he found the easiest thing to do, quickly, in order to get a product onto the market, was to put a camera in the toilet seat. And he doesn't like camera, I don't think, because they don't take pictures like you think of them. Like, they're not actually taking snapshots of your shit, but they're taking like images in different wavelengths.
Yeah.
And, they are doing sort of this basic Bristol stool analysis, and I think some other, a variety of other things as well. And wouldn't it be so interesting if, your toilet would tell you should go see a doctor,
Yeah.
Then maybe you wouldn't be talking to your friends about something, but your toilet would say, hey,
yeah,
it's time to go. There's some blood in there.
If you've heard and here, I don't know if they have it over there, but they have this cat litter called Pretty Litter now that like the litter will change different colors if your cat is sick. So it can like detect kidney disease, and you can buy it at Target. Like, it's not like a fancy litter that you have to like get prescription or something for. And so to have something like that for humans where like, hey, there's something in your fecal matter or your urine that is alarming, go speak to a doctor about it, is amazing. And especially in your book, you were talking about these new toilets and how they're really good in old folks' homes and care facilities. Yeah. And especially because like my dad has Alzheimer's, and I'm putting him in a care facility probably in the next year. And sometimes you can't communicate with these people about how they feel because they don't even really know how they feel. But then to like discover it through their fecal is incredible.
Yeah, I guess in a lot of care facilities, the care providers are supposed to keep what are called BM logs on these patients with dementia, because the patients with dementia can't report back on if they have.
Exactly.
They can use the toilets independently, which is great. No one has to go in with them, and that there's some dignity in that, I suppose. And then, but they can't report if they have a problem a lot of the time. If they have diarrhea, you would go and say, excuse me, I have diarrhea. And you can have outbreaks of diseases in these homes.
Completely.
But they don't catch them right away because people aren't reporting it, either because they're shy or because they can't.
Yeah.
And so they're supposed to do these BM logs, but it's not that easy to kind of stay on top of as well. I mean, you just stay outside the bathroom all the time and record, everyone's poop on the Bristol stool chart. It's not, they have a lot to do. And so,
but if they have these cameras built in, they can take the picture and make sure, because especially if they have diarrhea, they could be really badly dehydrated and you don't know until it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it. We actually did
this product is, I think it's still like at the, they're still waiting to launch it. I'm not exactly sure where they are with it, but they're really hoping to get it into some of these senior care homes soon.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We did a story actually about that, like the toilets that actually take pictures and everything, and you covered a little bit in your book. But the funny thing about but the part that I love when they were like sort of making that fake poop, the whole ingredient list of that, I was like, oh my god, I want to make this for the show.
I want to do it too. I was just thinking that for the book launch, like I should do a live video, making this.
Yeah, it was cracking up.
Which I have a couple questions about that. Why not just use the real thing?
Well, you can.
Why make fake?
You need quantities.
Yeah.
You need quantities. So,
so you just need to like store up a ton of poop, and it's just easier to make the fake poop.
yeah, and it's safer, right? I think.
Well, I think in your book you mentioned too, it's
Doesn't
like
have all the bad bacteria in it.
like someone's gonna go out and capture, like collect all this shit to use for the actual testing. So yeah,
People
just
do it. Yeah. So someone I know, she was collecting shit, and they do it especially in these universities where they're doing this research. They have to collect shit. But
There's certain countries where people are pooping in a bucket, and then every week they send the full bucket off to get a brand new bucket, an empty one, to poop because they don't have proper sewer systems. Like they need to like then include the universities and send off those buckets full of poop.
Yeah, that's right. That's a different story. But yeah, they need fresh poop, right, to do these tests, right? So like aged poop probably wouldn't work. And then the problem is that, so they want to collect shit, but people really only, tend to go once a day, and they tend to go in the morning before they get to work. So if you want everyone to bring their poop into the office in a Tupperware container, you're only going to get so much.
Yeah, I get it.
It's not just a question of putting a bucket into the restroom and saying shit here. Because most people aren't, they're just not going to shit over the course of a work day.
Well, we have one guest, Keith, who only poops at work.
Oh,
so he should be working in these
he would be a dream. Yeah.
Exactly. Like to the point where on the weekends he wouldn't even poop at home.
Oh, he's like a universal poop donor, right? No, he'd be fantastic. Maybe they should just hire him for that.
Totally.
I think at some point though they'd be like, oh, you're still not giving us enough for this. Like we need more. He's like, what?
We need a lot.
Yeah, we need a lot.
When the quarantine happened, I like literally texted him that first week. I was like, are you pooping at home? I'm worried about you.
Life finds a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then there was another project that I was writing about where they ended up getting poop from a dog shelter. Oh. They were making a product. They were making a technology to deal with human shit, but they got dog shit for a while because they could collect it in quantity. But that was also kind of funny, calling up the dog shelter and saying, "I would like to have the excess shit." So they did that for a while. But yeah, I think these university centers tend to be kind of the best place to find enough donors because the people doing the research are more likely to be willing to be donors as well.
It reminds me of when it comes to dog poop, that Israeli guy who has turned that dog poop collector. As you probably just heard and maybe saw, my 85-pound pit bull, I use so many doggy poo-poo bags, and I'm like, this cannot be good. And there's literally like hundreds of dogs on my block alone. I'm like, this can't be good for the environment. And then his contraption, I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. That I was like, they need to market this.
Yeah, so it's this thing called the ash poopy, which made a lot of buzz with the viral video. I don't really know what year that was, but the product never materialized. I just don't think they ever made it. But the technology is now being applied to sanitation systems for people.
Wow.
That's cool.
Interesting.
So cool.
But it started because this guy in Israel got a fine for not picking up his dog's shit, and he was mad. So he asked his friends, who was a scientist, to come up with a better solution.
That's awesome.
So then he did. Yeah. He just just blended a whole bunch of chemicals into the shit until he found some way to kind of turn it into this ash. It happens
pretty quickly.
That's what I understand. Yeah, it's like a reaction that happens really quickly. It gets really hot, so pathogens get killed off, turns into kind of ash, and then that can be like a fertilizer And they're actually installing this into some buildings in California now.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's still, they're still like testing it, but yeah, it's something that could really be, especially in new buildings. There's a lot of potential there. And they flush with a normal toilet. This isn't a bucket kind of system, but they just flush with a normal toilet, or maybe it's a low water toilet. But then they're able to just kind of pull the shit out really quickly as turds,
Yeah.
toilet paper, and then apply this process to it, and then they clean the water. So it's kind of, rather than if you let it get all the way to a treatment plant, the turds get really mushy, and then they get all dissolved into the water, and so does the toilet paper, and then it has to go through this other process. You can't easily separate it out. Although I did, speaking of toilet paper, going back to that, I did go see a project that pulls dissolved toilet paper out of the sewage stream and turns it into a product, a raw material called cellulose, right? Cellulose is familiar, like paper. And it's like this fluffy product, and I described it as like the fluff in your vacuum cleaner, stuff, like sort of just this fluffy product. And it's got so many uses, including in asphalt, which is something that you mentioned, Dave. But you can also you can make paper plates out of it. The question is, could you get people to eat off of it?
Just don't tell them.
You could just not tell them. I mean, that's one of the things that that I was thinking of when you were talking about, whether we should talk about these things or not. You could just not tell people, for example, that the water that they drink in some places and in the future will be cleaned up, recycled, reused wastewater, right? You could drink it, right? The way they clean it up and make it safe again. And that's happening more and more. Or that the food that they're eating or some other product is grown in biosolids from wastewater treatment. Or you could keep it from them. But the thing is, if you keep it from them and then they find out all of a sudden, they have this ick response. I think, personally, I think it might be better just to talk about it openly at first.
Yes. Get them out of the water closet.
Yeah. Then they get used to the idea, and then you won't have this whole uprising when people find out that, this is what's really going on.
Agreed. I mean, I think that...
Toilet paper.
I think on paper, yes.
Go ahead, Dave.
I think on paper, that's great. I'm just going by where I live in the U.S. here. I think people just like, it's like they almost don't want to know. It's like some kind of ignorance is bliss kind of thing. And not that you wouldn't tell them, but it's more like, here's the technology we have. If we don't start using this stuff now, like our resources are kind of limited. And I think people get on board in the sense where like, well, this is what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, obviously honesty is always the best policy, but I think if you're like, hey, check out these new... I mean, I wouldn't even... Unless someone actually particularly wanted to know or asked, I'd tell them. But if it was like my house and they had like, this is recycled toilet paper, paper plates that you're eating that hot dog off of, I'm like, I don't know. I think a lot of people would, like, you're right. They would kind of like... They would retch.
Yeah.
But
they could just say it's recycled.
Exactly. I think they're just putting recycled and maybe like really fine like 0.5 type in the back of the plate. You just say like, because no one reads that anyway.
Yeah, I don't think there's any regulations about it. I don't think you'd be obliged to tell them, but
yeah, exactly.
Talking really quickly about toilet paper, we always ask all our guests what brand you use and if you put it on the roll over or under.
Well, I use Who Gives a Crap toilet paper, which is
I love that.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about that here, I guess. They have two kinds. They've got the recycled toilet paper. I think the recycled is nice. I mean, it's a little like recycled paper. Toilet paper tends to be like rough and doesn't hold together. But personally, I think theirs does a really good job, and I don't mind a little bit of friction.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We do too. We're
like a little grit,
as Dave always calls it grit.
Oh, grit. Yeah.
Like it has a little grit to it.
Yeah, it works more. But they also have the bamboo, which I think you've also talked about. I actually find it too silky. Like it's not, you have to, but but the bamboo is very nice. So that's what I use. And then there's now a variety of companies that do this, but they donate a portion of their proceeds, right, to build toilets. And that's something in places that don't have them. Of course, that's something that's close to my heart. So, and they come in these beautiful like packages, wrapped up in paper, no plastic.
Nice.
I'm glad that they ship it to the Netherlands because I just knew about it here. But I think in your book it says
it's in Australia.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's new here. I mean, I think it's new to Europe and to the US relatively. But there are brands in the US as well.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
And Chelsea, do you put it on the roll over or under?
Oh, over. Yeah. Sorry.
Just gotta make notes.
That's okay.
That's boring. But I can say that in my book there is a picture of an old patent for toilet paper.
Everybody uses that excuse. No, it's fine.
I'm an over, Dave's an under. It makes it interesting for the podcast to have, change of opinions, different opinions.
I mean, does it really? Like, I get it to the point daily where I'm like, as long as there's toilet paper in the bathroom, I don't even care if it's like on the roll. I actually do care if it's on the roll, but
debate for the show. We don't have to debate it outside the show, but it makes it interesting for the people who are listening.
I'm beginning to think not. Because most people.
This is a new debate on top of that.
Yeah. It's a sub debate.
It's a meta debate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you invent the role where it's neither.
I just think as long as you have a roll of toilet paper in the bathroom, you're good.
Oh my God! Stick with your guns. It makes it more interesting.
Sometimes the toilet paper in my house is on under, to my surprise. And
do you know who's doing that?
I mean, I guess it's my husband.
And are you correcting him?
I don't correct it.
Oh, you just leave it there.
Because you're a civilized person.
I think he's indifferent. I think it's over under whatever's convenient. But he's one of the few people in the world who must be really indifferent to that.
You should ask him. And we'll even see if he's like, that's a thing. Like, if he's even like, wait, I do what?
Yeah, I will. I'll let you know what he says.
Life's too short about that.
They're very strong about what they believe. Talking about recycling stuff, one thing that your book made me think of, especially with the future of homes, is recycling water and how we use, just flushing wise, 40 billion gallons of fresh water just to flush our toilets. And so I was thinking, like, with the whole wastewater from dishwashers and washer and dryer and our shower water, like, why is there not maybe it's just laziness, but a system where we use that wastewater to flush our toilets with, I've seen those toilets. Have you seen those toilets when you flush, the water comes up a spout, so there's like a sink on top of the tank so you can wash your hands while it's flushing? But yeah, I'm wondering where the technology will go there. Yeah, I think there's just been this belief that our plumbing is like should be one way. And I think that there's, sort of health thinking behind that. But, there's clean water that you should drink, and then there's wastewater that you should get rid of. And that's been the paradigm for, a century, more than a century. And another thing, it's only been around for maybe a little over 100 years. Like, so we can change.
Well, they have.
Yeah. Well, the Romans also did it in a way. So, it's kind of one of these things that, every culture just had its own way of dealing with things. But yeah, we can change that. And there's a lot of ways to do it, projects to do, but I think it has to do with, just creating, we have this infrastructure in place, we're locked into it.
Yes.
It's easier when you have new developments, and I think we need to be doing this. Every new development should be putting in an innovative, sustainable system. Every time a cornfield turns into, McMansions, they shouldn't be putting septic tanks in for each one of those houses, just a traditional septic tank. There should be, they should be in competition
Yes.
to see who has the coolest
Yeah.
toilets.
Yes.
Also, I think if you turn into savings for people too, it's just like, this is going to save me how much now? Like, I mean,
It makes me think of solar panels, like people, Carter put in solar panels in the White House in the 70s and then Reagan ripped them out. And it's like now people are having solar panels all over their houses. Like now we're having electric cars with the Tesla. It's finally coming around, but these aren't new ideas. They've been around for like 50 years plus, So
That's
I envision these new houses where you do your dishes and your laundry and you shower, and then that warm water heats your house and then funnels down and it becomes the wastewater for your toilet, So everything is self-contained with your solar panels, and then it somehow harvests your poop and methane to heat your stove. It just seems like there's something there, that when I was reading your book made me hopeful for the future.
Yeah, and it's actually just what you just described. From what I understand, is really feasible. It's expensive, I think, at first. So it's not unlike some of these other technologies. Like there's a cost up front. So you can argue, yeah, you're going to save money over time. But say you're building a new house, and do you really want? How much of your budget do you really want to put into the toilet?
Well, wasn't that, I'm forgetting the name of it now, that one project, was it in the Netherlands? That one housing unit? Yeah, that was that was exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's a research project here in the Netherlands, which is really cool. That's actually been there. I think it was 2012 that it started, and then an earlier iteration started earlier, and they have vacuum toilets in their homes.
Snake.
Yeah,
Snake?
Snake.
Yeah.
SNEAK.
That's what it's called. Yeah,
Yes,
Snake.
the Snake.
Yeah.
You've had your run-ins with the Dutch language already, I know.
Yeah, we have a fan who's gotten very angry. Not super angry, but corrected me.
Dutch are very direct.
Yes.
Very direct. I think that's probably what you're getting. But there, they have these vacuum toilets, and then, which is a vacuum toilet's like what's on. Oh, you've talked about vacuum toilets too, I think. But it's like what's on an
Airplane, yeah.
Yeah, but they have new ones that are much nicer to use. You wouldn't want an airplane toilet in your home. But these are nice. They're very much like a toilet. It's just that there's like the hole is sealed at first, and then when you flush, you press a button. It's not like a real flush, and then you press a button and it sort of goes, but not too loud, and it just opens the hole, right? And then everything goes shooting out. Actually, you should have closed the lid, but if you want to see what happens,
Yeah.
close the lid.
Keep the lid open, put on goggles.
And then you have this concentrated source of toilet waste, with a little bit of water in it. And that's easier to treat, actually. And then there's pee in there, too, in this particular one. They don't separate it. And then they send it to a digester, directly to a digester, basically, to turn into biogas.
In the house.
Yeah, it's like in the building, and it heats the whole building, which I thought was like really fascinating.
Yeah, it's actually, maybe I didn't describe it that well, but it's in a separate, so this housing complex is like a bunch of low buildings, and then it's in the center.
Yeah.
There's just this little house. You wouldn't know what was going on in there at all. When I opened the door, when I went in, I had a little smell there, but it wasn't outside. And it wasn't a bad smell. You smell like you'd smell, I don't know, coming from a garden, from time to time, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they added food that goes down the sink in the food grinder. And that can be turned into energy as well.
Wow.
And then they also extracted this phosphorus struvite fertilizer as well from the liquid that came out of the digester. So they're getting so many resources out of it. And then they clean the water, and they can use the water as well. But in this case, they put it into the sewer. So this whole system is set up in a place that actually there is a sewer and there's an advanced wastewater treatment plant, but it's a research project. So it's nice for them to have this sort of alternative in case it breaks. They can send everything into the sewer. But that's kind of part of it. All of this is kind of experimental, and people have to be willing to participate in these programs.
Yeah. If you go out to
willing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. You just have to be willing to have a sort of experimental toilet and not be embarrassed by it. And, maybe if it does break every now and again, it's for science.
Yeah. Well, if you go to the Midwest, there's a bunch of like these homes, like these earth ships, motherships they call them, and they're doing all that. Like it's way cheaper in the long run, but they're using solar panels instead of like AC. They build the house into the ground, like I think like 7 or 8 feet, where the median like temperature is like say 75 or something like that. So it already keeps it cooler. It's being insulated by like tires, which is the foundation walls, which are packed with dirt. And then through that berm in the back, they cut holes so your AC is just collecting all this cool air. So there's no actual like mechanical AC. It's like you're just using the ground, the cold earth part. And a lot of them have a front, like sort of like atrium garden that is then connected to a gray water system. So your toilet water, your sink water, all that stuff gets recycled back in and feeds the garden. It actually, can be used for flushing your toilet. So it's like a whole system that they've developed, and it's expensive, but it's not like, like a building. I mean, you're building your house. It's not like a whole like crazy works department. I think that all then funnels into whatever local sewer system. But it's pretty fantastic. You can have like, you're just all in, your whole house is just basically like a living thing that just like keeps recycling everything. But I want to say they're called motherships. I'm probably forgetting the name of it. It's like earthships or motherships. I can't remember the exact term, but it's fascinating and very cool.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, there you can Google it. There's like the name of the architect. There's a whole documentary I watched a long time ago developing these things. But it's a process. But once it's built, it's like you're pretty much like off the grid. And it collects, the house actually collects rainwater. I mean, like depending where, even in the desert. It's fascinating. But it has a lot of similar qualities as that snake project.
I think the other thing is you really have to, in that case, know how to fix it all yourself, because you're not going to be able to call a plumber who knows how to fix it. Right?
Yeah, but there's a little bit of that.
That's actually a really big problem for some of these kinds of innovations, is that,
you have to have
not the expertise
manual that comes with your house.
Yeah. Do people really know, you want this new technology, but can you find someone to install it? Can you find someone to fix it?
It's almost like it needs to like be retrofit with like current things off the shelf. Obviously, there's new technology that has to be installed with that. But as far as like connecting to like sort of like old works, I think maybe that's the key. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. There needs to be something like where someone can just fix it pretty easily without having the engineering degree.
Yeah. Or, maybe the community, if there's a bunch of these, maybe there's some people in the community who are really handy.
Yeah.
Who learn how to fix it, I suspect.
They need built-in supers, like how a building in New York has a super who works on stuff. You have it in built-in supers to your village.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, in Snake, I met, the engineer who works on the system and the other systems by this company. She's a young woman. She knows how to, she knows kind of what to do, and just goes and checks on them all the time. But that, this sort of the staffing is actually a big cost for them.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. You're like, how do I fix this?
There's a lot of factors that keep us locked into the systems that we have, and that is one of them, just expertise.
They need trade schools just to train these people.
Yeah, I think, that's the sort of, idea around green energy too, is like, they just need a whole workforce of people.
Which we need jobs. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything else, like,
When AI is going to take over a lot of people's jobs, they need other jobs, so.
But it's like anything else, like, the Industrial Revolution, people had to learn how to like make these new things and like learn how to fix them. So, I mean, I think a lot of people just don't want to have to go back and think like, oh my God, we have to read. I think it's hard for a lot of people to kind of like have to learn a new thing. But that's the exciting part. And it's like infrastructure. It creates jobs. So, I think if you look at it that way, I think there'd be a lot more expansion in that world. But, that's all politics.
I don't know how to fix a toilet at all. I've written a whole book about them. And I couldn't even start,
That's the next book.
Yeah, like I'll do one of these gonzo journalism things where I, spend a year learning how to fix toilets. Yeah, that's okay.
We have a great plumber here, so if you ever need to talk to somebody. I trust him. He doesn't believe in the low flush models. If you buy a toilet that's a low flush model, he'll come take out that stuff from the tank and give you. And he's like, there's no point in a low flush model because it sounds like a good idea, like you're saving water. But he's like, you need that extra water to push stuff down and they get clogged faster and you end up flushing twice. He's like, it's so ridiculous. So he comes, rips the guts out, and puts in a flusher that's kind of almost like an airplane flusher, but not a vacuum. But it works.
Actually, kind of sad though. I mean, maybe he's right. But that is what happened. I don't know that much about it, but that is what happened when they first developed these low flush models. Is that they made everyone put them in, and they really didn't work very well. My understanding is they actually do work well now. So
Maybe the newer ones do, but I've had 2 toilets where it's just like, this is not working, and so he came and fixed it for me. But then I'm somebody who's if it's yellow, let it mellow kind of person. But then in your book, it sounds like that's not necessarily the best thing to do in certain cultures. But you were saying like the toilet paper was like clogging, maybe with like people who like their electricity or their water went out or something froze. But maybe I'm wrong. You're a yellow. If it's yellow, let it mellow kind of person.
I think that's a good idea. If your housemates will tolerate it, it's good because then you save the flushes.
Yes.
For sure. I do it.
Yeah.
I do bring it up in the context of water shortage in Cape Town, South Africa. But that was a different story.
Yeah. It sounded like it got clogged.
When people stop, so you remember the whole day zero thing in South Africa where they almost ran out of water?
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Yes.
Well, so people did just an amazing job of conserving water. But the consequence of that was that actually there was very little water in the sewer system, and sewer systems need water. There's just no way a sewer system that was designed to flow with water works without it. So you actually need a certain amount of water flowing through it. And that's a problem because if you conserve too much water, the sewer system doesn't work anymore. And also the wastewater treatment plant doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
If you have one extreme of
right. Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. Right.
Yeah.
So if everyone stops flushing, then you get a clogged, stagnating, disgusting sewer system that starts stinking.
Oof.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
gotta be.
they had a really big problem in South Africa. I mean, they were having big problems all around, but the sewer operators were having a big problem with this. And my understanding was something they didn't do, but they considered doing was asking everyone to flush basically simultaneously, like in the morning, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, so that there would be a big rush of water going into the sewer to then clean it out.
Yeah, flush it all
That's
out.
awesome. I want to be there. Like at 9 a.m., everybody flush, and like the whole city, you're just like,
yeah. Well, I guess they were going to do it over a window, but yeah. So, I mean, I think, so they noticed, so wastewater, so you should talk to your local wastewater treatment plant. My understanding is that they
I've been trying. I literally walked in there last year before the pandemic, and I was like, who do I need to talk to who could be on my podcast? And they gave me an email, and nobody ever got back to me. And I was like, what do I need to do to get somebody to talk to me?
Okay, I'm going to help you with this. But they do get a rush like in the morning because as you know everyone has this
morning pee. Yeah.
And then they do see peaks. Oh yeah, and you probably talked around, I don't know if you heard, but around the halftime of the Super Bowl and stuff, they noticed.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. I can see that.
That's an urban myth. I think it's true that they know.
Oh, I bet that's true. I bet that's totally true. And how like the day after the Super Bowl is National Poop Day because everybody is making bigger poops because of all the crap they ate the day before. So yeah.
So they notice everything.
This your book, like I feel like I could read it multiple times and still suck in so much information, and I really absolutely loved it. Like we've been doing this shit show for 2 years now, and this we've just scratched the surface, and your book is it's a lot more like the encyclopedia of everything we're talking about. So
yeah, it's a great book. It's a really fun.
I felt like I was writing the encyclopedia of toilets.
Yeah.
But with some spice. Little bit spicy.
Oh, I loved all the chapter titles, like giving a crap. Like I actually, and I love the little quotes. Those are my favorite before each one. My favorite being, those who write on shithouse walls roll their shit in little balls. Those who read the words wit, eat those balls of little shits. Traditional restroom graffiti. I love that's just so great. There are so many little things like that I loved.
I had so much fun putting it together. Those came out of a book called The Psychology in the Bathroom by an Australian psychologist called Nick Haslam. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he wrote a book all about psychology of shitting and stuff. So he's a really nice guy too. Someone you should
cool.
talking to as well.
Totally.
But he has a whole chapter on graffiti, on restroom graffiti, and the meaning of it.
That's pretty awesome.
One other thing, because we have a podcast and this is an audio medium, is your book coming out on audiobook?
It is, yeah. It's being recorded. It's being recorded now.
Awesome.
Amazing.
A really talented narrator, not me.
Oh, you're not doing it yourself?
No, I mean, it's really a lot of work to do. And,
can imagine.
And I really want it to be, I had the option to, I think I had the option to like maybe audition to do it. You know, the authors can do that. But I really want it to be a good listening experience. And I used to work in radio, and I know how hard it is to sit for hours and hours and hours and record. So I'm very happy to let a professional do it. And I think she's going to have a lot of fun with it. I hope so.
That's great.
Totally, yeah. I mean, so we should tell our audience the book is called Pipe Dreams. Read it and or get it on audio. Listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it is really very insanely thorough, and I learned so much.
Yeah. Available April 6th, 2021. So
Yeah,
last week. By the time people listen to this, yes, it'll already be out. Just go get it because it's a great read. It's fun. I mean, you're learning a lot, but it's also, I mean, there's some tongue-in-cheek parts in there. It's very relatable. And I think people can like actually dig into this and be like, oh yeah, we need some change in the way that we look at our toilets.
Yeah, people need to be educated, and this is a great place to start.
Yeah.
We could change a lot and be more sustainable. If everybody's buying a Tesla car right now, let's have a sustainable home. We use our wastewater and our pee and everything else.
Do you guys keep books in your bathrooms?
I don't.
I don't because of hemorrhoids.
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't read in there, but some people have these, bathroom libraries. I'm curious how many people have them, but if you do, I mean, this is a must-have.
Yeah. Just like
I kept it by the side of my bed so I could fall asleep at night thinking about the toilet.
But yeah, this is a great book. Everybody should get it. And I can't wait to hear. Actually, I want to hear the audio version as well now. That's going to be fun.
Especially the fact that we're on an audio medium. I feel like we're going to have listeners who are like, I don't have time to read, but if I have time to listen to a podcast, it might be great, So. Also,
I want to play clips from the audio version.
Yeah.
That's going to be really fun. But yeah, I was going to say we should do news, but we kind of covered the news that you sent me today, actually, Ellen, about the dog thing.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of talked about it already.
The article about the Israeli guy who invented the thing for the dog pickup. And I was like, this is so interesting. We had a guest on the podcast about a year ago who has two massive dogs. The two dogs together weigh 300 pounds. And he said it's something like, gallons, like 5 gallons of shit a week he's throwing out of dog poop because these dogs are so massive and making these. And I was like, I sent him that article. I was like, you need this thing for all that dog poop. So.
Yeah, since we already covered it, but I mean, we've done so much awesome stuff on the show today that I'm really excited about it.
I mean, the whole book is one big news article.
Pretty much. But thank you for writing this, and thank you for being on our show. And
well, I've just really enjoyed talking to you and also listening to episodes of your show. I think you guys are doing great work.
Oh, thanks.
Getting people out of the water closet.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a term we need to start working on. When somebody's like, "Ooh, I don't talk about that." Oh God, get out of the water closet.
I wish people could see your facial expression when you did that. That was perfect.
Yeah, right.
You don't talk about poop. What's wrong with you? 2021. Grow up.
That's it.
Oh my God, it's so
That's
great.
it. It's mature. It's mature to have these conversations.
Yes.
It's an
And,
adult
even
thing.
On our podcast, we've educated a couple people, like, stop flushing baby wipes. And, like, they didn't even know about fatbergs. Like, it's like, I mean, I didn't. I flushed baby wipes 4 years ago. I was a terrible person, you know? So, but we have to educate if it's one person at a time to help the system.
Totally. Yeah, everyone has a role to play.
Exactly. Well, we'll love to have you on another time as well. I'm sure we're going to have so many other questions, I'm sure, things that we just kind of rediscovered. Yeah. But yes, you're welcome back anytime you'd like.
Notes.
And so where
I look forward to your future guests as well.
And tell our guests where they can find you online or just in the world.
I have a website, Chelsea Wald, ChelseaWald.com. And on there are going to be some of my other events around the book as well. So you can find where else I've talked about the book. I'm on Twitter at Chelsea Wald, Instagram, Chelsea.Wald.
Excellent. This is great. Well, everybody should go out and buy this book because it's fantastic. It's a great read.
Yes. Thanks. If anything, buy it, read it, and so you have actually interesting things to talk about when stuff opens up again. Cocktail talk.
Yeah. Totally.
Imagine everyone's just going to come out of this, their isolation, and they're going to be like, let's talk about toilets. And everyone's just gotten extremely eccentric.
It's a new hot topic.
Sounds like my kind of people.
Actually, if you're one of those people that want to talk about some stuff that you loved in pipe dreams, give us a call at 203-998-5579. Or you can email us at
heypoopypodcast@gmail.com. Buy this book. Listen to it. We all need to be educated.
Yeah. It's a fantastic read. And again, Chelsea Wald, thank you so much for being on our show. It was a pleasure. And thank you for writing this.
Yes.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Aw. Awesome.
And happy pooping, everybody, and enjoy your butthole.
Hey Poopy Podcast is brought to you by Perfect 4 Entertainment, produced by Dave and Ellen, with executive producer Stormy Leather, edited by me, Dave.
For more information, go to heypoopypodcast.com for episodes, merch, and more. Follow us on Instagram at Hey Poopy Podcast and Twitter at Hey Poopy. Theme song by Jordan Perlson. Hey Poopy.